Okay, this is Friday, January 20th, and I'm Tom Van Zoren, and I'm in Laura Basch's home. We've been doing some taping of things around the area here, but today is kind of a bad day. It's kind of sleety and frozen rain and gray and miserable, and so we're in Laura's cozy home here to film some of the things she has around her home and pictures and things. First thing we've got here, how about if you go ahead and tell, Laura, what have I got on the camera here?
You've got a chair, a folding chair that comes off the rising sun. And the rising sun was a boat that went down in around 1919 in that area. I'm not just sure of the date. And it was on its way from Hog Island, and they were House of David people from Benton Harbor. And they went up there in the summertime to raise vegetables and stuff on the island, and then they would bring them back in the fall of the year. And as we've heard it, their captain got ill, and so they had a Norwegian captain take over, and he should have brought a keg of fish on the boat, and that should have been a bad omen, because they were strictly vegetarians. And when they got by Pyramid Point, the storm was so bad, it was a snowstorm, and they run on the rocks. And the boat was never moved off. And they gave my father and my husband each one of these chairs off the boat. Well, I don't know what my folks have done with it, but I still had this one, and I've had it restored to the natural varnish as it was. And so that's about all I can tell you about it.
Okay, and just to explain the inscription up here on the back of the chair, where does that come from?
Well, that's the rising sun. And that boat was called that. And a few years ago, I had Neil Gussert, who does that kind of work, to engrave it all on the chair, so we'll always know what it is.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what do we have here, Laura?
You get an old butter churn.
Uh-huh.
And we used to fill it about half full of cream, and then we would stomp the stopper up and down until we got butter.
Uh-huh.
And then, of course, we'd have to wash it. We'd take the buttermilk out, and then we'd wash it and make really good butter.
Mm-hmm. And where did this one come from?
Well, my mother and dad had that as long as I can remember. And I'm 83, so I would imagine it's every bit of that old or older.
Uh-huh.
Because it's probably the first churn they ever had.
Would these be for sale in a place like Shalda's store?
I really don't know. I don't think so. I think that they probably had to get it somewhere else. Sometimes they ordered things from Sears and Roebuck and like that.
Uh-huh.
But I really wouldn't know.
Uh-huh.
Of course, there was old stores around here that sold things like that too.
Uh-huh.
And Lake Leelanau had quite a farm store.
Oh, they had a bigger store there?
Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. And then, do you know anything about is it just a design painted on the front there?
No, I really wouldn't know what that design was.
Okay.
I would imagine it meant that this went up and down.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's see, if you take the top off, can we see what's in the bottom of the stick?
I don't know if that thing is in there or not anymore. I know what it was, but I doubt it.
It's got the bottom off.
Oh, yes, it is. It's in here.
Okay.
It's the richer one, too.
Yeah?
There it is.
That's the one, eh?
Uh-huh.
Those
That's
are-
just the way you go.
Uh-huh. Did you get that job sometimes?
Oh, you better believe I've churned an awful lot of butter in it. That was a kid's job.
It was one you could handle, huh?
Yeah.
How long would it take?
Well, it depended on the cream.
Yeah.
Sometimes it would churn quite and wouldn't take very long, and sometimes it would take a long time.
I see. Was the front porch. It's actually in a fully enclosed room now, but it started out as a porch, and that's what Laura calls it. And now we're in her living room with the pine paneling that she told about earlier. And focused on something up over your head, Laura. What is this?
That's a deer horns from a deer that my husband shot in 1943 or 44. It was one of the first deer seasons, and I was down to my brother's, and he and I were digging potatoes when we seen so many deer laying in his alfalfa field. And my mother just insisted that when Art went hunting, he should stand over on that line between the air camp and their farm. And he thought, well, I'm in the wrong place again. And he looks up, and over on Eckert's Hill, that big knob, there's a flag that they fly there. He's seen this big deer, and it must have been about a quarter of a mile, I would say, and he shot it. And he heard it when the bullet hit the shoulder. And he seen it go down. Well, he walked over across the hills, and after he got part way up the hill, he got to thinking, boy, that's a big deer. I bet you I've shot, we call Mr. Ecker always Old Hank, and he says, I bet I shot Old Hank's steer. And, well, all I can do is go and pay for it. And when he got up there, he see it was still a buck, and he had to shoot it again. And then he stood there and held it up while the school bus went by, and all the kids were so elated about it. Well, when he had it dressed out and we dragged it down the hill, my mother came down, and she said, shall I go down and tell Laura to bring the truck down? Because it was so big she didn't think he'd want to put it, we had a new Dodge. And he says, yes, I think I would. So she went down and she called him, and I brought the truck down, and Mr. Eckert came up, and it took three of us, after Art had lifted the dump box up, to get it on the tailgate. And it weighed 317 pounds dressed up.
Now, next to the antlers here, Laura, is a picture. What is that?
That's a picture that I took of him with the deer, and then we had an apple tree there, and that's what it's hung in, but now the apple tree is gone. But you can see the height of it from Granny's roost, and Mr. Hames painted it for me.
And the man there is your husband.
Yes, that's my husband.
And maybe we'll try and take a little better picture of this picture later on when we can put it on the copy stand. Now over on the opposite or adjacent wall of the living room, there's a large photograph or a picture here over the couch. What is this, Laura?
That's a picture on top of Bowers Point there, above their house, and Mr. Bowers put the year that he bought the place down there, the year that my husband passed away, and he knew, we always talked about the deer and how he shot it up there, so he put a flag up there in memory of it. And they keep every year. This year, I don't think they had a flag there, but they weren't here all year. But otherwise, they put a flag up every year there.
And Bowers are pretty good friends of yours who moved in and into the old Eckert place
Yes.
a number of years back.
And then he passed away and she married Herb Pluth.
Uh-huh. We're now in Laura's kitchen, and we've got some photographs here to go through. What is this first one, Laura?
This one here is my mother, and this is my brother Howard, and this is her flowers. And then back here is I think they call it a sawhorse or something that they cut wooden boards and stuff with. I have two of them. I don't know just exactly what sawhorse of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is a chicken coop.
Mm-hmm. And this was picture was taken where? At your farm or where?
No, at Howard Olson's farm.
At Howard's farm, which became the Bertha Olson place. And your mother she lived down there for a while, didn't she?
Yes, they did.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we have a photo of a couple nice looking people here. Who are they, Laura?
Well, my husband and myself. And it was taken over 40 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in our living room, and that's about all I can say about it.
Okay, good. Now we have another picture here. Who are these men, Laura?
This is Ann Hansen in the green outfit, and in the blue outfit's my husband. And they were chatting out here. Ann drove a county float truck, and I took a picture of them. And Ann used to work for us before when he was a young fellow, and after, not while I was married, though, to my husband. And so they always had good chats, and we were real good friends.
Okay. Next we have a picture of a couple of young girls. Who are they, Laura?
This one is my oldest daughter, Arlene, and this is my second one, Jean. And it was taken, this picture, down by Montfort's cottage on Good Harbor Bay, and that was the first cottage that was ever built down there. And we used to look after the cottage, and I imagine that's why we're down there.
Mm-hmm. And how long ago?
Well, I would say it's 52 years, like that.
Okay. Okay, Laura, what's this next picture?
Well, this next picture is my daughter Judy, and she was 13 years old, 12 or 13, and I got this horse, Frosty, from Jack Barrett for leaving him pasture on my land because my husband had passed away and I had to get rid of the cattle and I had all this vacant land. And so she liked the horse, and it was a good companion to her and helped her over a lot of rough spots when we first lost Dad. And so that's the horse that she really loved.
Did your girls have horses most of the time when they were growing up here?
Yes, we had draft horses, and we had a riding horse when the older ones was growing up. And then we had horses more or less while Judy was growing up. A few years, I guess we didn't have it. But most of the time we had horses.
Did most of the people in this area do much horse riding, like from the time you were a girl?
No, I think the most horse riding was done at Camp Kohana by the Bakers.
Mm-hmm.
We did have one horse, that riding horse, when Jean was about 12 years old, and I used to send her after cattle over to the Snore place, which is Kohana now. And I didn't know that she was pulling all these capers, but she was an expert bareback rider, and she would go up and down the fence just to tease the girls. And finally, Mr. Baker let me know that he'd like to have her ride with his horses, but I said no way, because he would kick her right as soon as he got in with other horses.
The people in earlier times just didn't have time for or money for having a horse for recreational riding, or what?
No, they didn't.
And what do we have here, Laura?
Well, we have a picture that we had a day on the farm for the Sweeney Camp boys. And they would bring them up here and leave them with us. And when we was hauling in hay and loading hay and doing things, we'd have the children with us. And they learned how we milked, and I gave them the Sweeney's creaming up for ice cream for them, the homemade ice cream with eggs and milk all off the farm. And this picture here is for, I believe his name was Steve Boland, and he and I was holding the cow, and he was petting it and looking at it so lovingly. And that cow just loved to be petted. Cows do anyway.
Okay, what do we have here, Laura?
You have the old Novotny Mill, and it was there as long as I can remember. And most people had their lumber taken care of, that was sawed up there and made into things. And one of the pieces of houses that has paneling made from, well, this mill and then their planers and whatever they had to have to make the paneling, is in Walter Hodig's house. And it was taken off an 80 that we had down by Lake Michigan, and then Porter Mulder bought the most of it from us. I think it was 40 acres. And so they give us time to get the pine out, and Joe Novotny bought all of that, and it went through this mill.
Mm-hmm. And this picture is actually a painting. Who did it?
Mrs. Richard Heath did it, and I worked for her. And the last time when she was here before she went to Florida, and she told me I could have any painting I wanted, but I should take one. And this is the one I took, because I just love the picture of this old mill.
Mm-hmm. And you told a lot more about Joe Novotny and the mill and some things there on our audio tapes a couple years ago. Good. It's now Monday, January 30th, a little past noon, and I'm back with Laura in her kitchen to go through some more of her old albums and so on. What do we have here, Laura?
We have a picture of my husband standing here against the car, and this is my little daughter Judy that we had 19 years and a month later than our other two girls, and this is his brother Harold, and this is Harold's car, and I've got this picture of him. In the background here you can see the pump house, and that's just about all there is to this picture.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what's this one, Laura?
This one here is putting the first steel roof that went on our barn on the north side. We only put a half of one on at a time, north side on. And this is Ernie Anderson, and this is my brother Alfred, and this is my son-in-law, Melvin Moody. And they're trying to get it done before it rained and before my brother went on the car first. So they got my husband got them and himself, and they got up there and they got that on all in one day.
Mm. And you say they replaced the roof boards too?
Yes, they replaced the roof boards, and they come from the Novotny Mill down on Traverse Lake.
What type of roof had been on there before the metal roof?
The shingles, wood shingles.
Those, do you know whether those wood shingles would have been the same ones that it had originally had?
I think they were.
Okay, what's this next one?
This next one is Judy, and on her dad's shoulders, and that's Art, and this other one's me, and it's in front of Granny's Roost, what I call Granny's Roost now, but at the time it was our milk house. And I had a bee flower garden there with rocks all around it.
What's this next one?
Well, this next one is an outfit, I can't say the name of it, but the county had it, and if I know right, Melvin Kilwee, I remember right, Melvin Kilwee was the one that drove it. And they would come up and they would clear the whole road out when they knew that the snow was, or storm was pretty well over it and it was going to be spring and be clear. And then we'd get out. Otherwise, we had gotten out all winter with the horses and a sleigh.
Mm-hmm. So this would have been along toward late or early spring, late winter that they would get you out and hope to have it plowed out for.
It would usually be the latter part of March, I would say.
Mm-hmm. And this was in through the around the 1930s, did you say?
I would say it's in the 1930s because Art and I were married in 32, and it may be close to 1940,
Mm-hmm.
because Art and I were married in 1932, and it was quite a few years before we got the road really plowed out.
Mm-hmm. And this is up near your place here?
Yes, this is right coming up a road, I believe, the way it looks at woods over here.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like that's the ridge, and of course at that time there was no pine on this side. I've done all that planting the pine since my husband passed away.
Mm-hmm. But the main roads would have been plowed out all winter, but these back roads, they would just let stay snowed in until spring.
Yes.
Okay, what do we have here, Laura?
I think this is Jean and a dog we raised here, and this is the corn crib we used to have, and this is the pump house. And after my husband passed away and I didn't raise any more corn, my son-in-law and daughter Arlene were on a farm and they needed a corn crib. And so I said, well, I don't use it anymore. If there's some way you can move it down there, you can have it. And Charlie Herway has never forgiven me for it yet, because he says there's something belonged on the place, but they cut it in half and made 2 trips and hauled it down to Millington, Michigan. And that's where it still is. I don't know if it's standing or not anymore.
And that truck there, was that your truck
Yes.
that Art used for
Yeah.
independent hauling?
That's what it was. It was for hauling, and that's why I think that is Jean, because I didn't have a truck after. I sold my truck shortly after my husband passed away. So I'm almost sure that's Jean.
Who do we have here?
Well, this is my mother, Vina Olson, and this is myself when I was still Laura Olson. And it's taken at Walter Hoody's place, and there was a whole row of popples along here. I believe this might have been the shed that was onto the house, because they did have some trees there too, so I'm not sure just where that was taken.
So when you say it's Walter Hoodick's place, of course you mean it's your own place where you grew up,
Yes, that's right.
when you were still living there.
Uh-huh. That was George Olson's place
Yeah.
at that time.
Okay, what is this one, Laura?
Well, this is my brother Howard here, and that's the colt. And this is what we would call a fishing net reel. And they'd put the nets on there, you can see it, and they'd let them dry, and then they would spread them out, and we kids always had to turn that reel while he was doing it, and he would fix the nets if there was any holes in. And then they would run them back into what we call a fish net box, and then of course they'd take them out in the lake again and set them. And this is the old corn crib that he had.
Was that fish reel likely a homemade contraption?
Oh, yes.
And so would you spread the nets out along the ground and then reel them up on this thing?
No, they'd take the end of the net there,
Mm-hmm.
and I just don't remember how those spread out. But I know, they after they fixed them, then they run them back into the fish net box, and they run them in there so they were even, so that when they go out on the lakes, they would be able to spread them out.
You told a lot more about your father fishing on the lakes when we did our tapes.
Yes, well, he
Couple
fished
years
out
ago.
on the reefs in the fall of the year for trout.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what's this one?
This is a windmill that was moved from the old Oliver place up on Wheeler Road down here. My sister bought it for $30 and wanted my folks to have a windmill so it didn't have to pump water. And this is the old barn that was there before they put a new one up.
Now, this is your old family farm you're talking
Yes,
about.
this is the old family farm, George Olson Farm, and there's 2 cherry trees here, and this is the granary. And later on, my dad, when they tore the Port United Church down, he got the siding off on it and he sided it. And so this is the whole picture of the George Olson Farm down toward the windmill.
Uh-huh, and that would be let's see if I can remember how many
East.
barns, but how many barns there, this was the first barn?
This
second
was
barn?
This was the first barn. And this part here that's a lean-to was the cow barn and horse barn.
Mhm. And this is taken from near where the house is?
Yes,
It's like standing right up against the house, more or less,
yes.
shooting back toward there. And what were you saying about east? It's toward
Uh,
the east?
Yeah, and this is the east side where it is, from the house.
Uh-huh. Before we talk about this picture, I just wanted to go back a minute. A couple pictures back, we were looking at the fish net drying thing, and on that, your father did that fishing. Now, did a lot of the men in the area do that fishing, or was that something he was kind of into?
No, my dad did it, and the Anderson brothers, and Uncle Charlie Olson did some of it too. And I don't know if there was anybody else that did it or not.
And it was mainly your dad that had the equipment for it?
Yes, he had a boat that he had, I guess, built.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a 16-footer, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And they went out on the reefs and would get those big trout and whitefish in the fall of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them weighed as much as 40 pounds.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, this picture here is what?
This picture here is a picture of my mother's family reunion on her side. And it's mostly people from Leland and East Leland. And they came up there, and we'd have a big potluck dinner in the grove that we've mentioned before on our other tapes. And then some of us that was all able, we went over to Pyramid Point, and this is the picture that was taken over there.
So this is by somebody who's down the bluff a little bit, right up there at the point, looking back up?
Yeah,
In 1925, when you were about 14.
yes.
Did you folks go out to Pyramid Point very often for special occasions or something?
No, but we did a lot of, when we were children, we spent a lot of time over on Pyramid Point and along Lake Michigan, but mostly on Pyramid Point and around through there.
Mm-hmm. What do we have here?
Well, we have a picture here that's over 80 years old, because I'm 83 now, and I'm the baby there. And so I would imagine I probably was 6 months old, or maybe, I don't think I was a year. And this is my adopted brother, Arnold Olson, and this other one here is my sister. She was 4 years older than I was, and she was Nettie Olson, and she married Wilbur Hodig.
So that's Walter's mother.
Yes. And she died when Walter was 3 weeks old.
And so he was raised in your family.
Yes, my mother raised him.
Okay, what is this?
This is a picture of, I think, what they would call a snow ski outfit that they used out on the lakes. And it was built at the homestead. And my sister Ethel, who's sitting here, was riding with some of the rest of another guy had her out for a ride. And somebody else was handling the machine. And they took a picture of this. And she gave it to me, but I don't know who the people were. But I know I've had her talk about lots of times about that ski outfit they had there that they could go out on the lake with. It was driven by a motor, I know, or wind.
When you say it was down at the homestead, would you mean the Leelanau School at that time?
Yes, it was the Leelanau School at that time, and they worked out of what is the homestead building there, the one now, the big one.
Mm-hmm. And Ethel is, what, maybe old, in her early 20s or something, or late teens?
Well, she was in her teens then,
Okay.
because she was only 21 when she passed away.
Oh. And she was how old compared with you?
Uh,
Or how much older than or younger than you?
Well, she was about 4. She was 4 years, about 4 or 5 years younger than I am.
Okay. Where are we here?
Well, here we are at my old home place, which was George Olson Place, and we're taking a picture of the dog sitting on my adopted brother's car, and I'm not sure if that's a Model T or what it is, and the house is looking toward the east side there. And that's about all we can say about that.
Good. Now, where are we?
Here we are at the Glen Haven Candy Factory when I worked there, and I don't remember if I can tell you just the year, but this is Vernon Goki, and I almost believe this is Mrs. Valance. And this is a Bloswick girl, Winnie Bloswick, Charlotte Grozier, I'm not sure just who this is, and Louise Westcott, and Elizabeth Sullivan. Oh boy, did I move that for
That's
you?
all right.
Roy Hansen, and this is his wife. I forget what her name was, but she was a Levance, Ruth Levance. And I think this was a Rient girl, and I don't know who this was. And this was a Mrs. Goki, and John Bloswick, and I don't know who these other two were. This lady was our boss. And we would go in the work on the belts for the cherries, and we would be sitting there picking out all the bad ones as the belt went along. And if it got too crowded, then we weren't getting the bad ones out. We usually have to set one of us, and I usually got that job of shutting the belt off until we could get the bad ones out. And then they went into tanks and were, they come out of a tank to be washed, and then they went into another tank and then into the pitters.
So this was when you were about how old?
I think I was around 20 years old. I wouldn't say, no, I wasn't 20 years old. I might have been 18.
Okay. So
But-
that would be about like 65 years ago, something on that order.
Yeah.
And
I worked there 3 times, and I don't remember just when this picture was taken, which one.
And most of these folks were more or less from the local area that worked there?
Yes. I was 15 because I took that with my little brownie camera, which I have yet to this day, and was the first camera I had, and I was only 14 years old when I bought it.
Mm-hmm. So these young women and older women came from the communities around the area?
Yes. See, this isn't taken here.
Okay, who's this?
Well, this is myself, Laura Basch, and it was taken when I had my first child, and it was taken down at Walter Hoodie's place, which is my old home place, and I was sitting in a Dutch apple tree, and they took it because I was so thin, and just wanted to take a picture of me.
Mm-hmm. Okay, where's this one?
Now this is the North Unity School, all they had in school that year, and this one here is Wilmer Prowse, this one here is Jimmy Shelda, Orrin Prowse, Howard Olson, my brother, and Tracy Prowse, his brother. Tracy was drowned down at Basch Lake, and this is my brother Alfred.
And this is right at the site of the North Unity School?
Yes, it's on the, well, what would be the east side from the school, I think.
Mm-hmm. Not many big trees there at that time,
No,
were
on
there?
that side there wasn't.
All grown back since then. Okay, who do we have here?
Well, this is myself, Laura Basch, and this is my husband, and this is our oldest grandson, Bob Moody, and this is our youngest daughter, Judy, and this is our oldest granddaughter, and this is the oldest grandson.
Mm-hmm. That's your car?
I think it was, yeah.
And looks like we're near the house looking at the barn.
Yes.
The barn. Okay, where are we here?
Here we are at the George Olson residence, which Walter Hoodick owns now. And it's a family reunion on my mother's side, which would be the Peterses family. And it was taken in 1925. And they used to come up and have a big potluck in the grove beside the house. And then they played some games and done things like that. But it was just a one-day affair.
This looks like it was the same day as that earlier picture up
Yeah.
at Pyramid Point.
Yes.
And this is the front of your house?
Yes, this is the west side of the house.
Okay, where is this?
This is down at Walter Hoodie's place, which was the George Olson place at that time. And my dad had bought this horse from Moe's Champney in Traverse City and brought her home. And then they raised a colt from her. And this is a picture of Howard holding her. And there's the corn crib on the old place.
Mm-hmm. And Howard here may be, what, in his 20s or something?
No, he wasn't 20 then yet. He must have been probably 17, 16 years old
Okay.
at the most.
Oh, okay. And what's the building to the left there?
That's a barn.
That's the barn. Okay. Okay, where's this? And who?
This is out at Pyramid Point. And this is my brother Howard, myself, my stepbrother, and my other brother there, and then it's Frances Seitz there with her 3 young children. She was separated from her husband. My stepbrother was going with her.
Mhm. posed among some big pieces of driftwood down by the water at Pyramid Point.
Yes.
Okay.
This picture here is North Unity School again, and this is Orrin Prowse, my brother Howard Olson, Bella Wheeler, and my sister Ethel, and my brother Alfred, and Jimmy Shelda and Wilmer Prowse.
And again, this is next to where the school sat.
Yes.
Okay, what do we have here?
Well, we have, this is Lois Olson. This is only this, and this is Ethel Olson, but we're not related at all. And this is Bob Olson and Carl Olson, who were Lois's brothers.
So Carl is the one that has or had the sportsman shop.
Yes.
And those are his brother and sister.
Uh-huh.
And then the other one is your sister.
Yes.
And where do you figure this picture was taken?
I'm sure it was taken in front of the Come and Dine restaurant that Martha Andrews and their aunt used to run.
In Glen Arbor.
Yes, in Glen Arbor.
Yeah,
and that was when I worked there.
I think you told more about that a couple years ago on our
Yeah.
tapes. Okay, where are we here?
Here we are in the golf course that was up in Stockton Park on Alligator Hill, was it?
Mm-hmm.
On Alligator Hill. And we, a fella from Cadillac built a golf course up there. I think his name was Logue, or of that order anyway. And he hired us girls to weed the golf course, and we had to sit mostly on our seat ends, and we had a little spade of some sort that we had to dig the weeds out. And I don't know how many holes they had up there, but that was our job, and we got $2 a day.
So that's how you got to be so rich.
Yes.
But you didn't know it as Alligator Hill in those days, it sounds like.
No,
Okay, who do we have here?
We have Fred and Ellen Miller, and they were Leona Dare's parents, and Fred Miller made this sleigh that they have now, are sitting here on, and he supposed to have modeled it, and he made it, and they used it for us going downhill and like that.
And they were the ones that lived at where Leona Dare recently sold?
Yes.
And they had a rooming house or...
A rooming house and an
restaurant.
eating house at one time, but then they turned this into an eating house because their other one burned.
I guess we went into that a couple of years ago.
Yes.
Okay, what is this next one?
This next one is a picture of what would be just below Milton Bash's barn used to be. His barn is down, and it's looking up toward Gordon Bash's hills. And the snow was so deep, and they had an awful time to keep the roads open that year. We had so much snow. And you can see how deep the snow was there by the trench through that we had for a road.
Okay, what's the next one?
This is the Weaver house, which we call the old Weaver house down here. And it's under the trees there. And I believe right here is a quince bush, either here or here. And then there were some pear trees here and apple trees. You can't see much of them, and there's some grapevines. But the main part of the house was right here, and it's near the washout. That's about all we can say about it.
Okay. Well, it's pretty obvious what this is, and this is when it's nice and fresh and different from what now it's quite faded out. Do you have anything to say about this one, Laura?
Well, about the only thing I can say is it belonged to Louis Shelda, And they had a barn before this, and it burned down. What I don't know what happened to it that set it afire, and then Louis replaced it with this barn then.
Mhm.
This is Walter Bowers, and he is the man that bought this place, which now we call the Cluth place, but it was the old Eckert place, and he bought it from Wallace Eckert, and then he started planting pines and uh, doing what he could to build the land up, and he lived for I forget how many years there, and then he loved to sail, and he was sailing a boat over to the Virgin Islands, and he had a heart attack, and they thought he was going to come through fine, and all at once he was gone. And so he never got back to the farm again. But he was a wonderful neighbor and a wonderful man.
Okay.
Um, this here picture was given to me by one of my daughters, I'm sure, and it's a schoolhouse on the North Manitoba Island. That's just about all I know about it.
Okay. And this picture is dated June of 1966. Okay, what's this, Laura?
This is a picture of, we took in 1971 when the water was so high and we had a lot of storm, and this shows the erosion of the trees as they was taken right off the banks and out into the lake. And we walked down there, and we could not get in places. We couldn't walk at all unless we walked out in the water or if we climbed over the trees. It was so badly eroded. And also at that time, Sweeney's had a camp down there, and it took out so much of their bank that they had to take a ladder and put it down in order to go to the lake. And I think it was only within 10 feet of their house, and they finally had to move their house back.
Okay.
This is Bertha and Howard Olson, and they're at the back part of their house. And this was supposed to have been a kitchen at one time, but they used it for a woodshed when this was taken, and this part was the kitchen over here. And this was the yard around. That's about all I can say about it.
I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here on Howard and Bertha. That's as far as I can go. Okay, what do we have here?
Well, we have the steam engine that the Anderson brothers used to have. And I seen an ad in the Michigan Farmer that a fellow from Kentucky had an ad in. He wanted a steam engine. And so we went over to the Anderson brothers and asked them if they wanted to sell theirs. And they said, oh, yeah, we won't use them. See, we don't use them anymore. And so we asked them what they wanted, and I think it was $500. And then we got in touch with the guy again, and between making contacts and writing with him, they finally got up here and bought the machine. And my husband and I both helped to load the machine, even on the truck. And when the fellows come, we ask this fellow here, that was one of them, that come up, and then the other guy was from Kentucky, to sleep in the house, and we told them they could go upstairs in a certain bedroom, and this guy went up. But the guy from Kentucky was with bare feet, and he said, no, I'll sleep in the barn. And he slept in the barn. He would not sleep in the house. And the next day, we loaded this machine, and I have some other pictures of us loading, and I'm sure I can find them, of where they're putting it on the truck. And this picture was sent to me by this man's wife to show me how they unloaded. And what they was using this machine for is in, like they have at Buckley, in farm sales and stuff like that.
And this was the machine that would power the thresher that the Anderson brothers used, brought around to the different farmers in the old days?
Yes, they would. They had a thrash machine, and they would thrash grain, and they would go from one farm to the other, and this they used to power it.
Do you have any idea during what period this machine was used in this area?
No, I don't, but I can probably look and see when we get to the rest of the pictures.
Okay.
Because I've got them,
Mm-hmm.
but I might have to look some other place than just in the books. I don't remember whether I've seen them in these books or not.
Okay.
I've been through so many books.
Well, we'll go through them all.
Yeah.
Okay, what do we have here, Laura?
Well, here we have a school teacher of the Portonita School, and this was a birthing, I believe. And I don't know who these are, but this is, I believe, Rose Kelderhouse, and this one here I'm not too sure of, or this one, and I think this was a Riggs boy,
Just a minute, please. Okay, go ahead, please.
and this is a Riggs boy,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not sure about this one, but this one here is Roland Kelderhouse, and this is Art Basch, which is my husband, Charlie Miller.
Just a minute, you're getting ahead of me here. Where's Charlie Miller?
Charlie Miller's here.
Okay.
And this one I'm not sure of. But this is Charlie Eckert. And this is Wallace Eckert. Archie Brunson. Ivan Basch. Bill Basch. Wallace Eckert. Let's see. I'm not sure about that one, but this is Anna Miller. This is Walter Basch. And I don't know who this one is. But this is Franklin Deckel and Helen Eckert and Rose Kelderhouse and Mabel Eckert and I don't know those, but this is Franklin Deckel. And this is, let's see, it's one of the Eckerts, and that is Mildred Basch and Wilma Eckert and Jim Riggs. And I don't know who the rest are. That's it.
Okay, and this is the Portonita School, and your husband Art here is about, you figured, 10 years old?
I would say 10 to 12. I'm just not sure.
Mm-hmm. And he was born in 1897?
Yes.
Okay, so this was around 1907 or somewhere right in there.
Yes.
Tuesday, January 31st, just before noon, and I'm back with Laura in her kitchen, ready for another session. Who is this first one, Laura?
This is my mother, and she used to be Vina Peters, and she married my father, George Olson, and they lived down here in, which I have told before, on the by Milton Basch's, and then up in the log cabin. She has a brother, had a brother, John Peters, who used to be out on the lightship between the islands here on the reef for many years until they built this new outfit that's out there now. And he retired from that. Then she had another brother, Dick Peters, who owned a farm that now is the Manatee Market. And he was lived there until he passed away. And so those was the two families. She had one sister, but she just lived in Leland, and her life was quiet with a family.
Do you have any idea how this picture may have come to be taken, or when, or
Well,
where?
Well, years ago, they took lots of pictures somehow or other. And she worked, I think, for Julius Beers in Traverse City at one time. But anyway, it was taken just as a photograph like we would take, only they took them this way.
Mm-hmm. What do we have here, Laura?
Well, here you have our farm place here, the old barn and the pump house, and my husband and myself and our little daughter Judy, who was born 19 years and a half after our other family. So that's about all I can say about that.
Mm-hmm. And this picture has a date of 1966, which is shortly after your husband died, right?
Yes,
So this picture must have been taken probably shortly before that time.
that's right.
Okay, what's this one?
This is a picture of the asphalt plant that was down here on the corner of Stebner Road and M22. And this picture was it was in 1936. And this is my husband's truck, and he hauled asphalt out of there. And here's the gravel place pile where they hauled it, and that gravel came off the Stebner place. And then it was, I don't know, screened or what, and then mixed with, so it was asphalt. And then they would be hauling it out. And it shows the picture in the gravel, or asphalt here, and he is sitting on scales there. It's being weighed. And and this is the scale place.
Mm-hmm. And you said that there was a time when a man was injured working at this asphalt plant that you recall?
Yes, Horace Mallory. And he still is living in Florida. And I'll try to get a little more information on this. And they built roads, blacktop roads, and such as that, and driveways around here at that time.
And what happened to Horace Mallory?
Well, he got crushed, and he was in the hospital a long time. He was buried right to above his waist, and he laid in the hospital for quite a while. He had a lot of injury.
And this is your husband Art's truck, and the man in this picture is Art.
Yes,
himself.
And he's just getting in his truck.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what do we have here, Laura?
Well, you have the picture of myself with, and I'm Laura Basch, and this is my oldest girl, Arlene, and this is my youngest girl, Jean. And this picture was taken, and if you would see, notice the ridge, down there, what we call the turnaround, this side of Walter Hoodie's, and it shows the ridge of the washouts. You know what, I wonder.
Okay, what's this next one, Laura?
This is my husband, when he was young, and this is his brother Bill. And Bill ended up, Frank Bachlock was our neighbor down here, and he worked on the lakes, and he got a lot of young men on the lakes working that way. And one of them was Bill, and Bill ended up to be a captain on one of the flagships of the Cleveland Cliffs, I think it was. And he even got my husband on for a while, but he couldn't take it because his feet bothered him. And then Bill got my brother on, and my brother worked on the Great Lakes until he retired, and he's in Saginaw now. But Bill passed away, but he had, all these fellows had really started out from Frank Bachlock, who was a stepson to George Smith, and they had what we call the Hames place now. And he'd stay there in the winter, but in the summer he would sail on the Great Lakes. And one of the things I remember, after he retired, there was a foreign boat come into Manistee, and they had to get him to bring it in to the Manistee Harbor.
Mm-hmm. So, who were some of the other men in the area that Frank Backlot got going on the boat work?
Well, Gordon Basch and Narvel Donner were two of them that I remember distinctly. Frank got jobs for.
As well as your brother, you say?
No,
Or no, your
my,
brother came from the
From
south. Go
my-
ahead.
brother-in-law.
Right.
And my brother-in-law got him a job because I had been so good to his mother.
Okay, what's this one, Laura?
This is what we call a side delivery that was used behind the tractor. Now, this was our Ford tractor, but we did have a case in the end to run it on. And you would go along the hay after it was cut, and it started from here rolling up the hay, and by the time you got back here, you had a nice windrow of hay. And then you let it sit until it dried, and then you would have a side delivery or hay loader, which are, and one of the hay loaders is down here in the Cletfield or someplace down there, Everett Olson. And you know that should be taken care of somewhere. But there is one in Marie Kloos barn that is in good shape, and I will give it to the park if they want it. And being that it's in the barn down there, they can just leave it there. Because the barn belongs to the park.
Mm-hmm.
So they can leave it there, but it is my loader.
Oh.
And then one time, Milton Bash's had cut hay just below Kloos, and their two oldest boys was home then yet, and it rained and rained, and you just couldn't get the hay dry. So one day we had a real nice day, and my husband come by there, and he see these two boys out there with pitchforks trying to turn it. And he stopped, and he told him, he says, stop doing that. He says, I'll go home and get my side delivery, and I'll turn that all for you. Well, it was such a nice day, and by turning it that way, the hay got dry, and then my husband took his tractor, and they hooked it onto, Milton had, I think, 3 wagons at that time, and the boys loaded it, and my husband drove the tractor on the loads, and when Milton come home, he had 3 big loads of hay to unload.
That was kind of nice, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, what is this picture of?
This is a picture of the Richard Heath place that used to be by the lake on the lower side of Lane Road. And I worked there for 16 years. I started out after my husband passed away just a few hours a day because I had my youngest girl, 11 years old, and I wouldn't leave her that long. And she didn't want to go with me. She felt that they was a little too sophisticated, which they weren't. And I worked there for 16 years, and I ended up being a caretaker of the whole place. And this is the beautiful fireplace that was all stone right to the ceiling. And they had a carpet in there that was made, I think, in Europe. And it was of leaves, it was all wool-like, and it was made with figures of leaves and stuff like that on it. And Leelanau Schools has it now. And they say they're taking very good care of it. And also the Davenport that was in that room. I'm happy.
Now, what do we have here?
Here we have a picture of Sam McLaughlin, and he was the one that bought the what we call the Klett place now, or that, but it was he bought it from Frank Deckel, and then he sold it to Elmer Klett, and I worked for them. In fact, I worked for Frank Deckel's first when I was 12 and 13 years old, like that, and then it was during the Great Depression, and then I worked for Sam McLaughlin's after that for $2 a week. And Sam and his wife had a boy who was a college graduate, but something happened and his mind got turned and he walked backwards. And he could run as fast backwards as a lot of people could run forward. And he wasn't everybody he cared for. But I never had any trouble while I was working there. No matter what I'd say to him or anything, he wouldn't mind me, but he would be very kind to me.
And this boy always walked backwards?
Yes, from time he worked too hard in college, they said, or something, and his didn't rest enough, and his mind got turned backwards. And then when they sold, they went away from here, and I think they went down around Cadillac, and Mr. McLaughlin took up wicker work, and she passed on, but he still, well, the last I heard of him, of course I think he's gone too now, but he did beautiful wicker work.
This is a picture you took of him down at his place hauling logs out of the woods?
Yes, and that's down on what we call the Clett place.
What's this next picture, Laura?
This is an aerial picture that was taken by my son-in-law, and before he went to New Jersey from Traverse City's Coast Guard Station, and a recruiter station, and they gave him trips on the helicopter over my place to show what it looked like. And this shows the road here as you come up and around and you'll pass the place. And so it's all Basch Road, and I've planted all those trees since I've been here, and that's 63 years ago. And this is what it looks like today. No, it doesn't look like.
And this one?
This one here is also a picture of my place, aerial view, that my son-in-law took from the helicopter. And if you will watch, right here are some benches that I have, and I'm sitting on them. And the rest of it is the place around the house. And this is a little coop up here that we used to have cattle in. This is a little brooder coop and pig coop we had.
Excuse me just a minute, Laura. I got zoomed in there and we're missing what you're saying there. Okay, could you start with the...
This is what we built for a chicken coop to start with, and then we used it for cattle. And after my husband passed away, I just left it. But then this is a little brooder coop and pig coop we had, and then I moved that away and moved the pig coop up here. And this little coop is over here somewhere. And of course the house is snuggled pretty well in the trees there. And this is the driveway, I believe. And of course the barn sets over here. The house does set really, doesn't it, set snuggled here in the trees.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what's this next one, Laura?
This next one is a picture taken in 1930, and these are a pair of Belgians that was brought from Missouri, and they had a horse sale in Traverse City, and my husband bought them, and I believe this is Dick and this is Lady, and I almost believe this is my husband's head right here, just part of his head that's that high. And he had this truck, and he brought him down to Burfeen's, and it was taken in 1930 in the spring. And so then they unloaded him down there, and they brought him up through the fields to the house here.
Why did they unload him down at Burfeen's?
Because they couldn't get up here with the truck, because the road wasn't snowplowed yet.
Oh.
And so anyway, we had them, and they were horses that really knew how to take a hold of things. Many of these big rocks that are moved on banks down here, we moved with those horses on travoid or otherwise with a chain around it to the banks to get them out of the field.
And you worked these horses did your work for you for how long?
Well, we had them, I don't remember just when we got rid of them, but many times we had another horse with them that we got, like Jim, and we worked the three of them together. And many times I disked and dragged with three horses, and they were so gentle. It was really nice to be with them. And we had them, one time my oldest girls was home, and Arlene usually rode, and Jim would be the one that I would ride mostly, or Lady, and then Judy or Jean would be the one that would ride Dick. And one day we were down by Zeitz's, and all at once Dick just started to quiver, and then he went right down on his haunches. And I can still see Jean just jumping right off of him and running. We don't know if he had a slight heart attack or just what happened.
When did he die?
No, he just got up afterwards. And my girls used to take those horses when they were young, and every Sunday about, if we went to church and they come home and we didn't go someplace else, they would go down to Lake Michigan by the sand dunes and spend all day. They would ride them down there, ride back, and they would tie them down there by a little pond that was, and they just loved it. And that days you could let the girls do those things. Today you wouldn't do it.
Okay, what's this piece of machinery?
This piece of machinery is a thrash machine where you thrash grain. And you will see either Walter Hoody or my brother Alfred there throwing the bundles into there, and it goes in by an elevator into the machine, and then the grain is separated from the straw. And this pipe here, you will notice, it goes up into the barn, and that's where the straw went. It was blowed up into the barn. And then, I think this is my husband, but I'm not sure, and they were holding the sack there for the grain to go in, and then they would carry it into the granary, and the granary was back over here in the barn.
And where is the power source for this machine?
The power source is over here, would be on the end of these big belts, and they had a steam engine to power it, and that steam engine is now either in Kentucky or Indiana. The Andersons, through me and my husband, sold it to some people down there, and they use it as a demonstration for steam engines and stuff, the same as they do at Buckley.
Okay, that's the one we saw the picture of the other day.
Yes.
And this would be the Anderson's threshing machine.
Yes, that's the Anderson's threshing machine.
What do we have here?
Well, we have our first Ford tractor that we bought. And my husband had taken those small tires off. He didn't like steering them. And he put on tires that you would put on a car. And I think he's here setting it out to cultivate. And he's adjusting the wheels. And this is the dog that we got when Judy was a baby. And he was very protective of her. And here you will see Judy sitting on the tractor, and he's watching her. But he was very protective of her. But he'd let her sit up on that seat, and she'd think she was just doing a wonderful job.
Mm-hmm. And around what time did you get your first Ford?
Well, it was in, I really don't remember, but it must have been 35 or like that when they were first out.
Mm-hmm.
And it was through Ford garage that he got it. And he got it really over a few others because he had such good relationships with Harry Foote, who was the head of the Ford garage
Where was that?
in Traverse City.
Hmm.
In fact, the Ford garage is right there, the same place as always,
Oh, yeah.
but it's run under a lot of different hands.
Mhm.
And one thing about that guy, one of his salesmen, they sold cars too. And I will have to say this, that one day I was talking to him, and he said, you know, his name was Walt Arnold, and he had walked from Cadillac to Traverse City many times, and that was when they started getting coffee breaks. And he says, you know, this world is going crazy. All they think of is coffee breaks.
Hmm.
I always remember that.
Hmm. What's this scene here, Laura?
Well, this is buzzing wood, and the Ford tractor's over here, and this is a buzz rig that connected on to the hoist of the Ford tractor. And they drop it down, and it had a table and all, and we can see the table, and then they would shove the wood through and cut it with this saw here under the guard. And this is my husband, Arthur, and this is my brother, Alfred, and this is Julie Shelda.
Do you have any idea where this is taking place? I suppose it could be anywhere.
I think this is right out here somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Maybe when they were
Yeah.
logging off one of the woodlots around here? Or
It
thinning
could be on the Hames place too. I really don't remember
Mhm.
just where, or it could be on the back 40 here of the Weavers. I really don't know where they took it. Because apparently they're throwing the wood into the truck.
Mhm.
And Art had this high box, and they'd fill it clear full of wood,
Wow,
bring it home.
quite a load of wood.
Mm-hmm.
Were you saying earlier when we weren't taping that he would actually truck wood all the way into Traverse City?
Oh, yes, that was during the Depression.
Mm.
And get $2 a cord.
$2 a cord, huh?
And besides, you'd have a hired man, but you was paying him $1 a day. And then later, we sold wood to resorters and like that, but then it was higher priced and went up as high, I guess, as $35 a cord,
Mhm.
but for fireplace wood. But we hauled it to Leland and right back at Traverse Lake and around Glen Lake and all. We made pretty good on our wood. And I hauled many a cord of wood. After we had loaded it, I'd take it into the resorts, and this box would be full of wood, and I knew how to lift the box and all, and I'd dump it. And one time I was going right by Lake Leelanau, around one of those bends there going toward Leland. All at once one of my tires blew. Well, I kept on going because they're dual wheels. And I got into Leland, and Joe Schwartz, he had a station there, and he said, Laura, just go ahead and keep using it till you get home, then the tire will come off easy for Art to take it. But it was quite scaring when you hear a explosion like that.
And you got a big load like that,
Yeah.
I bet. Who would you sell the wood to in Traverse City?
Ford garage, because we bought a truck, and it was no work, no payments. Well, I kept on taking wood in there. They wanted wood because they were selling it for, I imagine, $1 a cord or something like that, or maybe more. But well, no, it would have to be probably $3 a
Yeah,
cord.
right.
And that was in 1934.
Mm-hmm. So that was how you made some of the payments on the truck?
That's right.
Okay, Laura, we've got a big truckload of wood here.
And this truckload of logs is taken from the Burfine 40, which we called in front of our house. And Pierce Stocking cut and timbered that off. And he had loaded the wood, or logs, out here. and I took a picture of him. And he took these logs over to where he sawed them into lumber, and then after he was through with that or whatever, I don't know just how they done, but he made charcoal out of the rest of the stuff. And from there on, I really don't know too much about it, but one of the things I remember is out on front of their house, there's two great big maple, or three, and he come to my husband and he said, I'm going to take those big trees down. And my husband, well, he said they had, but he stretched it a lot farther. He said, those trees are full of nails. He said, when we was kids, we used to go out there and pound a lot of nails in those trees. And he says, well, I don't want that to go through my saws. So he says, I'm not going to take them. Well, then Howard Burpine came over to us when he found out about it, and he wanted us to pay for those trees. My husband says, I'm not going to pay you for those trees. If you want to take them, but they're all full of nails. And so today they're standing there as yet. I think one of them might be partway down, but the other big one is still standing out there as a monument, and I bet it's way over 100 years old.
Nice trees. Okay, what do we have here?
Well, here we have where the county is the first time built a road from our house, Basch's house, down to where it hits Fort Oneida Road. And here's the equipment that they were using as they were going through there. And in here is a spring that we have in a tank that was built with it. And that's right on this side.
Is that the one we looked at
Yes.
earlier? Okay.
Yes. And I would say it took quite a while for him to get through there because it was a lot of rough going. But I will say one thing. That's Porcupine Cemetery as far as I'm concerned, because I would kill, on an average, 3 porcupine a night down on Hames's place where they would get in our corn, and I'd string them along the road, all in a nice row, and the county would bury them down here every night, every morning. I think it's nice to know those things.
Okay, where are we here?
You're here in front of my sewing room, which I have now, but it was an open porch. And I have like about 4 or 5, it's 4 I guess, pieces that has grown together, and I've laid them down the way they were grown, and I put flowers on top of them here. You will see the flower stands there. And this is my daughter Jean, and this is our horse Dick.
Did you mean, is that Judy or Jean?
That's Jean.
Oh.
Wait a minute. No, that's Judy.
Okay.
66, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's 66 then.
Mm-hmm.
That's Judy.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my husband. And I had this all growed up here. Of course, now I have taken it all out. And so now I have this all paneled because lightning had struck my house and tore out this corner here. And so I had that fixed, but then the screen, I had it screened in too at one time, and it was all arched. So then I had Harry Garthy put windows in it, and I've had it now all insulated and made into a sewing room.
Okay, what's this, Laura?
This is a picture of my husband when he was real young, and this is, I think, the first team that they ever had here. And this was a mare, and then there was another horse they had that was a male, and that was a balky horse. And my husband said he should have shot him long before they ever did, because it would have taken a lot less off their lives, because there's nothing worse than a balky horse to drive. And this is taken here at the place, and many times he rode these horses down to the old Kilder House store with a basket of eggs to bring home some groceries.
Now, what's this situation?
Now, this situation is where my husband had went down, we had farmed the Frank Basch place, and we had corn down there, corn stalks. And he went down to get a load of corn stalks, and it was on the wagon, and he was on his way home, and of course on side hills and that, and it tipped over. And he's standing there looking at it. But you will see there's a chain there, and he got it on some way after he got the corn stalks, I think, off, and he tipped it back.
Got it hooked up to his Ford there?
Yeah.
The Ford tractor?
I think what he probably is doing there, he's got it probably on the hoist, and he's slowly tipping it back.
Yeah, 'cause he's just standing there.
Yeah, he's watching it as it's coming up.
Okay, what's this setup, Laura?
Well, this is a winch, and if you will watch, see, this is the truck in there, and this is the pulleys, and they would put the logs, start them from on these tripods or whatever your poles here, and they would roll them up easily, and straight, and they'd get them on the truck, and they would load a whole truck of logs real high. Now, I think we have a picture of it loaded so high, just shortly before this, and that's the way they did it. And this is Pierce Stocking's business, and they wanted to go across to our field down here, and my husband said, no, you're not going to, because I don't want that tore up. He says, you can load them in front of the house there. And they had one fellow there. He was run the bulldozer, and the horses, they had horses too. But he would walk up to, go up to a tree, 6-8 inches wide, in diameter, and just push it right over, thinking nothing of it.
With the bulldozer?
Yes, with the bulldozer. And then they had horses, and they made a shed out here, and we watered those horses for them and fed them during the weekends if the guys went home.
Mm-hmm. And what did you think about the bulldozer pushing the trees over?
Well, that was just destroying nice young timber that would come up. And some of it was beautiful cherry wood, because there are nice cherry wood out in this woods as far as I know. There used to be.
Probably were more before.
Mm-hmm.
And the horses were used how?
They skidded logs, where they couldn't do it with bulldozers and like that.
Mm-hmm. It's now February 3rd, just about noon, and I'm back with Laura again in her kitchen, where she's sitting in her usual perch here by the kitchen window, keeping an eye on her corner of the world. She looks out this window much of the day and kind of supervises Basch Road. And we're going to begin another session. Here's the copy stand we've been using. Lights and surface there on the kitchen table for filming photographs. And we'll continue with that now. Okay, first picture of the day. What is this, Laura?
Well, this is a picture just below my house. We call it the orchard, but it really wasn't much of an orchard there. There was a couple of trees over here. And these are the little pine trees that I planted in that corner, which is now big trees. And this is a horse-drawn mower that I bought from August Bramer. And I brought it up here to my place. I had this Ford tractor, and I would cut the fields out there. It was much wider and easier for me. And on the tractor right now is Don Snyder, my son-in-law, and he cut the fields when he was here. And he could smash more tongues by turning short than I could hardly fix, or Walter Bowers could fix. But we did keep it all trimmed up nicely with this horse-drawn mower. And then I gave it to Alfred Mason, because I didn't need it anymore, and my back was starting to play out, and I had to always move it. And so he, as far as I know, he's got it, but I'm not sure.
Okay, and now this mower came from August Bramer. Who is that?
August Bramer used to own what is the Circle H, is it?
Yeah, it became the Circle H Farm.
Yes.
A ranch.
Ranch. And he
Riding
owned it,
stable.
and he sold it to Huey, Art Huey, and he still run the Bramer Mill too down there. And in the wintertime, he'd have his move his cattle or pigs, whatever he had, down to a barn that they had across the river from their mill. And then in the summer, he'd take them back up to the what we call the Circle H Ranch for the summer, and he farmed up there.
So he was one of the farmers there on Thorson Road during the early years when you were young here.
Yes.
Did he have a family?
No, he didn't. He was single.
Okay. And let's see, there was a barn and a house there then?
Yes.
And those are both gone?
And a granary.
Okay. And did he own the mill in Glen Arbor then?
He took over after his father died.
Mhm.
Because his father, Frank Burmer, started the mill there.
Okay. And where he had his farm there on Thorson Road, do you know who was there before he was?
No, I don't, but I think I could find out who was there before that. I think it was a Warner or somebody like that, but I'm not sure.
Could it have been his father before him?
No.
Okay.
I almost believe that was a Warner place.
Okay. Well, let me know if you find out anything further on that.
Okay.